Hey everyone, my name is Mostafa. I'm really excited to be in M1 with everyone else here at SIU. If you haven't already noticed, looked around at the channel, I'd like to think that I try my best to help everyone out. So I just want to preface the video with that and let you guys know that, if you're ever feeling a little confused about anything, if you reach the end of this video or feel that any part of it is confusing at all, don't hesitate to reach out. Send me a DM on GroupMe, text me if you have your number, whatever it is. I'm always willing to help. So I also want to mention that I'm by no means an expert, and I definitely don't have everything figured out. So I just figured that this would be a helpful resource for all of us to kind of help us, ease into the transition to medical school. But by the way, this video is meant for SIU students because there's specific information that I'll have here. But if you have any friends at other schools that need help with AnKing, feel free to share this video with them. There will be timestamps throughout the video, so you can kind of skip to a specific section if you get sick of me talking. But I highly recommend watching the whole video if you can. Just you can kind of get a comprehensive idea of what's going on. Now, with that being said, just want to give you guys another heads up of what this video is going to be talking about, so you can kind of get an idea of what I'll be rambling on about here in just a bit. So first, I'll do a quick introduction, show you guys how to download the latest version of AnKing, which I know that was a whole spiel. People had different versions and stuff, so I'll kind of clarify that. I'll explain kind of what AnKing does, what its purpose is, and especially what it shouldn't be. I'll also explain different types of cards, how to create your own cards in your own decks, and just kind of the ins and outs of the whole program, settings and all. After that, I'll kind of go into more details of how to add or import decks to your AnKing, specifically the SIU decks that previous students have made, as well as more popular mainstream decks like AnKing. From there, I'll show you how to integrate AnKing and AnKing Hub, as well as the add-ons, and I'll explain what those are here later. And then I'll go, in more detail about what the settings are for AnKing and how to set up the FSRS algorithm, give you some basic settings that you can tweak on your own later, and then finally how to, kind of go about studying in suspending and unsuspending cards, looking up tags, what tags are, and just figuring out what you need to learn and where to learn it. So without further ado, here's the first link that I have for you. So this is the link to download AnKing. It's apps.ankiweb.net. So if I scroll down here a little bit, I should see some download links. So I'm going to be, showing you guys how to do everything here on a Mac. I don't have access to a Windows computer, so I would have loved to make another video for Windows, but, these are the download links for both Windows right here. This is the one that you're going to choose, and Mac right here if you have an Apple Silicon Mac. So if you bought an M1, M2, or M3 MacBook, you would download from this link here where it says Apple Silicon. And then if you have an Intel computer, Intel MacBook, then you would use this one. If you're having trouble kind of figuring out, or if you're not sure which, computer you have, feel free to send me a text, reach out, and I can help you figure that out. But I think any links I show or mention beyond this will be in the description. If I miss anything, let me know so I can add it back to the video. Now, I think there are going to be a few settings that might be a little different between Windows and Mac. So I think Alex did a really good job about having a guide on the differences in the settings. So I'll share that as well. He has a good Google Drive link about that. And yeah, if you have any other questions about the difference between what software you're using and you're not sure like where to find a certain setting, just reach out to Alex or me, whoever you want to reach out to, and we can kind of help you find your way. But I want you to bear with me here. So I'll be on this website here for a while, just kind of talking about AnKing. So AnKing is an awesome tool. We all hear about that a lot. It can seriously make a difference in how we study. But before we dive in, I want to clarify what AnKing is and what it isn't. And with that being said, before I go ahead and forget, I will make sure I have it open here too, so you guys can see what the homepage kind of looks like. So AnKing's purpose is to help you remember the things you need to know by using spaced repetition. Basically, that means it makes sure that you're seeing the right information at the right times so it sticks in your brain. But here's the thing. AnKing is just, it's not magic. It's not going to replace good old-fashioned understanding or hands-on practice. It is a supplement, not a substitute. So when you're setting it up, using it, think of it as a memory assistant. It's there to give you a nudge when you need it most, but it's not doing the heavy lifting for you. It's not a replacement for all the other, amazing resources we have at our disposal, whether it be different textbooks, third-party resources, videos on YouTube, our library, our professors. It's super tempting, to rely on just one tool so you don't kind of, get chaotic with everything. But we do need to take full advantage of our in-house lectures and the material we get from our school, because that's tailored specifically for our curriculum, and that's what we're going to be tested on for in-house exams. After that, though, it's a great idea to supplement with additional resources like Boards and Beyond, boot camp, or textbooks to deepen our understanding and fill in content gaps, especially if you prefer to start preparing for boards early, which I'll explain how absurd that statement sounds here in a second. So the key here is that you're trying to make sure you're doing multiple passes through the content. First, you sit down, you take your traditional notes, do what you got to do, listen to the lecture, and then really trying to understand and connect all the dots. And then only after that, should you bring Anki into the mix. Its job is to help you retain all that knowledge long term, but it works best when you've already put in the effort to really grasp the material. So another thing to keep in mind, and this is addressing the whole studying for boards early statement, is that there's a fine balance between studying for the short term and the long term. So if you've spoken to me in the past few days during orientation, you've probably heard me say this a lot. But right now, our main focus, frankly, is just passing our in-house exams. But we can't forget that boards are just a few years away. And sounds like when everyone tells us that these years are going to pass by quickly, I trust them. So I know it sounds crazy to think about boards this early, but it's something we just need to inherently keep in the back of our minds at least. So like I said, it sounds insane, but trust me, if you're at least putting in the work with Anki every day, little by little, when boards come around, you won't be scrambling to cram everything in during dedicated step study time. So I've had some friends tell me the same thing. They've shared the same sentiment. They've all said don't go super crazy with it, but you have to kind of address it and keep it in your mind that little by little, if you do the work, you do the heavy lifting short term right now where you're studying for boards early, or at least keeping in your mind, doing the work, then when it comes time for actual board study time and taking the exam, you're not going to be scrambling. So instead of stressing out at the very end, you'll already have that solid foundation built up over time. So while we're using Anki and other resources to prepare for our upcoming exams, we should like I said, be thinking long term, making sure we're retaining this information for the future, because once again, it's striking that balance, so we're not just passing exams now, but also setting ourselves up for success down the road. So once again, it's totally up to you. Like I said, I'm not an expert, I'm not a know-it-all, I don't claim to know everything, but it's totally up to you how you want to set things up for yourself. I know I've seen it firsthand, that it's super, super overwhelming, because prepping this early could mean you see like a gazillion Anki cards a day, which is pretty daunting. So at the end of the day, you do you. I'm just trying to lay out all the cards and options on the table. So now I'm going to show you how to create different cards and what the different types of cards are and how to edit them. So I'll talk more about add-ons for cards later, but there is one add-on I'll be mentioning right now since it's relevant, and I'll show you how to download it. So now that you have Anki downloaded, like you see here, I got this window right in front of me. You want to actually place your Anki app somewhere that's accessible, like your desktop, your dock, so you don't forget where it's at. So I've already downloaded it, have it set up, and I got it open, and it's in my dock right here. So you can just do that by dragging and dropping the application wherever you think is most accessible for you. So we'll go ahead, have our Anki open here. We can see the interface. We have a little toolbar at the top right here. So there's Decks, Add, Browse, Stats, and Sync. So Decks, this little section here, is exactly that. That's where you find your flashcard decks for different subjects, topics, you name it. Eventually, you'll probably have multiple flashcard decks or subdecks when we get deeper into things. So, treat this button as your home button to kind of get back to the main page to see all of your overarching decks. If you open up a subdeck or find yourself lost within subdecks, you can use this kind of to go back home, basically. Add is simply the button we use to add flashcards, which I'll show here in a bit. Browse is our flashcard editor. So it allows us to view all the flashcards, tags, and behind the scenes work that allows us to edit everything and anything individually with respect to the flashcards. And I just noticed this actually here. There's little shortcut keys, so you can, click those keys on the keyboard. It kind of accesses those quickly, but it really doesn't matter. Stats is a really nice page if you want to nerd out and check info about your retention and your progress. So let me actually open this here. So here's stats, right? It allows you to see stuff like, how many flashcards you have left. I think if I scroll down here, yeah, how many flashcards you have left, how many you've mastered, how far your learning intervals are. The more learning intervals are basically how many days in advance you're scheduling out your reviews. You increase the interval the more you get a card correct until it reaches a maximum interval that you've, preset or predetermined, which I'll talk about more later. It's kind of an indication like, hey, I'm doing pretty well with this card. I don't have to keep practicing it a whole bunch in the short term because I'm retaining it pretty well. So let's, quiz myself on it long term in a few weeks, a few days, or however long the AnKing algorithm deems based on your performance. So it's up to you if you want to kind of like check this page regularly or not at all. It's kind of nice to keep track of how you're doing and especially how many cards are coming up too. So that way, you'd know if you needed to grind tomorrow, if you can take it easy another day, or if you need to move things around in your schedule to adapt to a heavier or lighter load of AnKing cards. Let me exit this out here. If I go to sync, now sync, if I click this here, shows account required, right? So sync is going to be used for AnKing Hub, right? And in general, it's used for making sure your decks are connected to the internet. So that way you can access these cards on the go via an AnKing web account, which you can go ahead and sign up using that link that pops up right there. It just allows you to sync to multiple devices and, different platforms. So, it's really nice because there's a $25 AnKing app on iPhone and iPad. And I think it's free on Android. But it essentially allows you to sync your cards on the go. If you don't want to pay for the app, if you're using an Apple device, then you can just honestly use Safari or Chrome or whatever and go to AnKing Web, log in, do your cards from there. It's up to you. But it might honestly just be better to bite the bullet and pay for the app for sake of ease of use and convenience. So let's talk now about how to create AnKing cards. So let's start with the most basic cards, which are, that's not the basic one. This is the basic one right here. So up here at type, you can select the different cards, right? So we'll go ahead and do the basic card. So this is just front and back. It's like a simple standard flashcard. You can also, tag the flashcards here at the end, which I'll go into more detail about the tags here later, right? But you have a front and back, like a simple flashcard. You can tag the flashcard at the bottom here, like I said. And tags are basically just like the name says. They're, little labels, little tags that help you organize your flashcards. So you can have one overarching deck or deck, one overarching deck, and then within those decks, you can further organize them. And then feel free to kind of mess around all you want with these tags. But with the pre-made decks like AnKing, they're bound to have like a million different tags, so you don't have to worry about that a whole bunch. If you're creating your own deck, your own study material, if you want to do that, then you can go ahead and tag things by whatever subject or topic you're studying or how you want to organize it, just up to you. But the front of the card, you can have a question, and then on the back, you have the answer. You can call it a day. So I can just put like, what is the powerhouse of the cell, right? And that's a mitochondria, right? And that's how you make a card. You click add and you're done. Let me go ahead and delete that. And actually, you know what? I might as well go ahead. So if I go, what is the powerhouse of the cell? And I say that it's the mitochondria, right? I click add. Let me exit out here. I can see that I have one new card that I can study. That's what is the powerhouse of the cell. I click my space bar and I get mitochondria. Then I have these little learning steps, and again, hard, good, easy buttons right here that I'll go a lot, more into detail here in a little bit. But let me go back to add, and we will go ahead and talk about the second type of card, right, which is close cards. So close cards I think are probably the most important type of card. So they're like fill in the blanks. You can actually make multiple cards out of just one editing window that we have here. So like I said, you can write something down like, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? And then what I can do is I can highlight this. Let's say I want to make this my blank, right? So I say the blank is the powerhouse of the cell. I want to make sure that I remember that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So I'll go ahead and come to this button right here, 2 brackets with an ellipsis in the middle. Click that, and now it gives me these 4 brackets here, C1 colon mitochondria, right? So that's a blank now. If I want to add an additional blank, so if I want to say where I have it, the mitochondria is the blank of the cell, then I can highlight this other word here, powerhouse. And then there's another button, right, that I can click. It's the same look, it's just, 2 brackets, an ellipsis, and a plus sign. So that allows you to do more than one fill in the blank, basically, right? That's if you want to create 2 cards out of, one editing window. Alternatively, let's say if you just want to do 1 card, right, where I have to remember that the blank is the blank of the cell, then I just simply click on that first button again. So when it shows up as a card this time, I click add, right? Let me click out here. I go back, study now. This was the first card that we created. I'll skip that. So I see that it's the blank is the blank of the cell, right? So we created just one other card there, right? Now, if I want to go back, let's say, and I add another card here, I do the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and I highlight mitochondria, right? Make that my first close, and I make this one my second close. See, it says C2 now instead of C1, and I click add. You'll notice that it added 2 more cards here, actually, right? So if I click this, study now, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I get 2 blanks there. That's 1 card. Now here is what I was talking about. You'll get the blank is the powerhouse of the cell, so I have to remember this is the mitochondria. And then I get the mitochondria is the blank of the cell. So that I get 2 cards there out of 1 editing window, right? You can do either way. It just kind of depends, what your needs are. But that's how to make those fill in the blank cards, where you have, you could either have just one, card with multiple blanks to fill out, or you can have, 1 editing window and then, 1 statement, and you can make 2 cards out of that. If you want to have it like, like I said, you want to know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and you want to know that the powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria, right? So, I really prefer this flashcard setup, the close cards, a lot. I think there's a couple research studies out there that show that for whatever reason, it's just more straightforward, gets you through it quicker, and helps for long-term retention. Let's see here. There's an extra field here that I forgot to mention. So you can use this for like an extra note for any other additional information you want to add to your flashcard. It's up to you if you want to use this or not, but yeah, it's there if you need it. And then there's a toolbar here. You can bold things, you can italicize them, underline them, you can do superscripts, subscripts, change the font, change the color, whatever you want to do. So those are options here as well. But yeah, this is where you find them. Let me kind of move their mouse around a little bit. So there's that. And then finally, the last type of card that I'll go over is image occlusion. So for this, we'll actually need an add-on, because it's so much easier to use the add-on as opposed to the native image occlusion settings. For whatever reason, I don't know why it was giving me trouble, but I'll show you how to do that here in a second. So let me go here to my second link. Like I said, all these links are going to be in the description. So AnKing Web not only stores all your flashcards on the go, but it's the main hub for all of your AnKing add-ons. So if you search literally anything, any add-on that you come across on YouTube, you hear from a friend or whatever, you'll find it on AnKing Web. So this is the image occlusion enhanced add-on, right? So this is the one you're going to want to download. So whenever you're on an official add-on page like this, right? If you scroll down enough, you should be able to see that there's a unique code here at the bottom. It's right here, right? So you want to copy that code, and you want to go back to the AnKing app, right? And I think, like I said, it's a little different between Windows and Mac, because Mac has its toolbar up here somewhere, right? I don't know if it's showing up on the recording, but yeah, I mean, it's up there, like it's top left, I think. So Windows might be a little different. I think their toolbar is like integrated within the app, the Anki app itself. So if you're confused at all, like I said, for any differences between Windows and Mac, I think Alex already has a really good doc to kind of show you how to set up add-ons, and I'll link that in the description below as well. If you have any further questions about this or anything else during the video, if you use a Windows computer, not sure where to find a specific setting, like I said, just reach out to me, reach out to Alex, reach out to whoever. If you had someone else to figure it out, and we'll get you taken care of. But at least you want to go ahead, go all the way up to the toolbar if you're on Mac. So it should, next to the Apple logo up in the top left, you'll see Tools. And then you can go ahead and click Add-ons, right? And I already have it, selected, but you'll see here, you'll click Get Add-ons, and you paste the code and you click OK, right? And once you do, it's gonna, set it up, and it's gonna ask you to restart AnKing. So you just kind of close it out, open it back up, right? Then you should be set with the add-on. So should be noted that some add-ons are just not compatible with more recent versions of AnKing. So if you ever add something later on, it screws something up with your program, you can just go back to your list of add-ons, then delete it to fix everything. So anyways, back to the image occlusion enhanced add-on. So we're going to go ahead and add a card, right? We'll change the type here to image occlusion enhanced. We'll choose this. And the reason why I do enhance is because it gives you a lot more fields here to kind of mess around with. If you want like extra notes, extra whatever, you can do that. Now, let's see here. So yeah, like I said, I couldn't even get images uploaded without adding the add-on. So you should be able to see this little button here. This is what the add-on is, right there. There's a little hover button right there. It says add image occlusion, right? This is really helpful if you have a diagram. If you're using something for anatomy and you want to, point out like a specific muscle or specific part of your organ, and use it to just kind of go straight through and blaze through, the different parts of that organ or that muscle, then we're gonna click here in the image field, right? This little image box here, and then we're gonna click that little tool, right? And actually, there we go. Okay, so we'll click that tool. We'll go to downloads. I actually have an image popped up here. And then we'll open that, right? And we have an image of the heart here, okay? So, yeah, that part before is just asking us to upload an image. There's gonna be that little pop-up. And then now we can draw like, circles if we want, or ovals or whatever you want to call them, right? Let me actually delete these two. That wasn't good. Do a rectangle instead. That's easier to draw. So we can cover these, right? That's the image occlusion, and then the goal obviously is to occlude these parts, and you try to name them later on. So you can go ahead and keep occluding all of these, right? There's a lot of settings here. It's very overwhelming. I'm just doing the bare minimum, the basics. If you want to explore this later on, be my guest. But at the bottom, you'll see like these different options here, which are hide all, guess one, hide one, guess one. So basically every time you draw like a circle, rectangle, whatever shape you want to draw, what happens is that it's gonna hide that answer. It's gonna create a different flashcard every time you occlude an answer. And then that way, when you say hide all, guess one, it's going to show you all of those occlusion or all those rectangles or shapes. And then it just goes one by one, asking you to guess, one of them, right? If you choose to guess one, hide one, then it's going to show you all of the answers except one of them. And that's the one that you have to guess. So it's just up to you what style or format you prefer, what you want to do, and what your preference is. But both get the job done. So if I go ahead, let's see here. I want to make sure that I save this, right? So I go ahead and close, or actually, hold up. Let me go ahead and open again. There we go. Do that, and make sure I got all these occluded. And if I go ahead and click hide all, guess one, it says 6 cards added, perfect. And when I go ahead and I want to, study them, if I click default, study now, I see it marks the one right here in red. That's the one I'm supposed to guess. And it keeps all the others, occluded. That's the hide all guess one. So I go ahead and guess this one. Good. Move on to the next one, and it's in red, etc., 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 right? Now, if I want to go ahead and do the other setting, right, which is, what was it again? Hide one, guess one, right? If I want to do that real quick, it's going to make 6 more cards, but then it's going to show all the answers except one that's occluded. So it's going to make 6 more cards added here, like you can see. We'll go out, 6 more cards right there. And these are all just the ones from the previous. So there we go, right? So it shows all the answers, and now it's just including one of them, the atrial septum. And you can see you kind of get the gist there, right? Now, once again, like I said, the reason why I said to use the image occlusion enhanced type instead of the regular image occlusion is that it helps to give you, extra fields to put in, information, extra notes you want, any other information, which you don't have as many of those options with the regular image occlusion card. So, and that's, same goes for other card types. If you want to put in like extra information or something, whenever you actually get to using your flashcards, and you click the space bar, let me actually, I'll show you kind of an example here. So if I want to put an extra here and say, the heart is awesome, right? I'll preview it, and preview is a really nice, and I'm sorry, I opened the browse before I wanted to open it, basically. I just wanted to show you real quick here. But if I click preview, this is really nice when you have the browse toolbar. I mean, actually, you know what? I'll go back, just kind of slow it down a little bit. So we'll go back to decks. We'll click browse, right? There's a bunch here that I'll simplify here in a second, but I have a card. I'll click preview, right? And I see here that whenever I would press the space bar, I get this little extra here, give me an extra note, and I can see more pertinent information about this flashcard if I wanted to convey anything specific, right? So that's how to create different cards, what the different cards are, how to make good use of them, especially image occlusion, which is super helpful. We're getting close to the home stretch, so bear with me. I'm going to talk now about AnKing, Anki Hub, and adding the SIU decks, as well as explaining what add-ons are. So I showed you how to do add-ons earlier. You can follow those exact same processes for individual add-ons, but there are 40 recommended add-ons that I think Alex mentioned and that the AnKing recommends for our studies. I won't show how to install all of these, and in fact, I really don't think you should install all of them in one shot because some of them might not be compatible anymore. It can be very overwhelming. It's just going to mess everything up. So it's enough as it is. But basically, add-ons are just tweaks to the original Anki software that enable you to do extra things or have extra options. So for example, I think there's like one add-on that allows you to see like a heat map here at the bottom, which is really nice, kind of, because it kind of gives you a cool way to look at your studying streaks. So you can kind of keep on top of things and hold yourself accountable, and it helps kind of gamify studying. I won't name drop, but I know that we have a classmate who has a mean Duolingo streak. So something like that could be really helpful to make sure you're on top of things. Other add-ons could, help you simply change, the theme of your software. You could do like a custom background or whatever, just to kind of, make it more appealing environment to study. But yeah, there's like a million different things that you can do with add-ons. So feel free to search up whatever add-ons you want beyond the essential ones, but that's a whole another thing to explore. I'm not going to go that deep. But I mean, if you ask around, if you see a friend using cool add-on, if you search things on YouTube, essential add-ons or cool add-ons to have for Anki, you can go ahead and do that. Same method I explained before. Just go to Anki Web, pull up that add-on, copy the code, install it that way. But yeah. So let's talk now about the AnKing deck, which is going to be one of the most important study resources for Step 1 and Step 2 board exams. So really, like I said, the purpose of AnKing for us right now would be to start, it's helpful for us to, to use it to start prepping a little bit early if that's what we want to do for boards, as we go along, obviously, with our in-house material. So you can go ahead and suspend and unsuspend cards from the Anki deck based on what material we learn as we go along the way. That way you're not just being exposed to in-house material, but you're also studying for boards ahead of time because there's stuff that we'll learn inevitably in-house at SIU that we might not need to learn or know for boards. And there's stuff that might be missing from SIU lectures that we do need to know for boards. So, it's kind of helpful to kind of move along with the school curriculum, pull out cards from the AnKing deck and unsuspend them, trying to learn them as we go along for, long-term prep and retention. Now, the AnKing deck is free for version 11, but I highly recommend just, shelling out the $6, biting the bullet for the Anki Hub platform to get version 12. So with version 12, they kind of made it paid. And the reason that is, and the reason why I recommend it as well, is that there are a lot of errors that have been corrected from V11 to V12. So V12, with it being paid and being an online platform, and by online platform, I simply mean that it kind of syncs with Anki Web and everything. It's it's connected to the internet. It's really nice because it's continuously being updated and modified. So I'll show you how to set up Anki Hub. Make sure you have V12 because honestly, that's what the M2 students recommended. That's what I would prefer to make sure to have everything updated. And it seems like that's what most students I've asked seem to plan on doing. So I believe Alex has dropped another guide as well. It's the same guide, same doc. I'll drop it in the description too on how to install V11 the free way. So for Anki Hub, we'll go ahead and do that. There's the third link here. You'll go to their website, create an account, right? Sign up, and then you'll once you're signed in and everything, this is the kind of platform you're going to see here, right? So it'll show you subscribe decks and then decks that you haven't subscribed to. You'll see AnKing step deck at the bottom here somewhere. Whenever you get to it, you'll go ahead and subscribe to it, and it'll ask you to subscribe and upgrade. You'll click that, you'll pay for it, and then you'll be subscribed and you'll have the AnKing step deck just right here, okay? So once we've paid and subscribed to it, and obviously I've done that so far here. I'm not really trying to show my credit card information online. So we'll go back to Anki, right? Go ahead and open this up here. And then we'll go to the tools. Once again, I'm not really sure if it's showing up in the recording here, but on Mac, very top toolbar. On Windows, it's probably integrated into the app. You'll go to tools and then add-ons, and then you'll get, click add-ons here again like we've done before. And then we're going to use the code 1322529746. Really hope I got this one right. And we'll click OK. And download complete. Please restart Anki to apply changes. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and click OK. Command Q. We'll go ahead and quit the Anki app and open it back up. Right? And then now, we have it restarted. Go ahead, sign into Anki Hub. There should be a little, new option for the toolbar. So on Mac, once again, if you go up to the Apple logo, top left, you'll see Anki File, Edit, View, Tools, Help. Next to that should be a new option called Anki Hub. So you can go ahead and sign into Anki Hub. We'll use your username or email, right? Okay, sorry for the weird cutoff here, but totally didn't realize that I put my email out there. Did not want that. So went back and re-recorded this bit. So couldn't show you kind of like the details of what happened when you set it up, but just to kind of give you the gist, because obviously there was personal information involved, couldn't share that. But once again, you're going to go ahead and to Anki Hub up here in the toolbar for Mac. It's going to be integrated in the toolbar here in the app for Windows. We'll click Anki Hub. You'll sign in. Like I said, it says sign out for me, but yeah, you sign in. And then once you've signed in, put your username and password that you used to sign up for Anki Hub. You'll click sync with Anki Hub. Takes a little bit. Once you have it synced, it'll look like this. It says AnKing Step Deck, gives you an instruction, and it seems like it only has just one flashcard. That's not right. So we'll go ahead and click Browse. Like I said, this is our kind of big file editor here, and we're going to want to do a few things per Alex's recommendation, which is to kind of put step 2 stuff to the side, right? One really good thing to do is to try and minimize all these little tags and drop down menus because it can get very overwhelming. So we'll go ahead and minimize this, that, and everything else here. So we're able to focus, right? So what we want to do is go to tags here, and we'll go ahead to AK step 2 V12. Okay. This is all of the step 2 stuff that we don't want to worry about, as well as step 3, right, for V12. And then there's step 2 V11 as well. We'll go ahead and all of these we want to go ahead and suspend them, right? Looks like they're all suspended as a preset, right? So that's fine. Those are all suspended like we want. And then we want to do is go ahead and flag these, right? So we'll go ahead and select them all. So you can do Command A or Control A. We'll flag them, give them a unique color. Let's say turquoise for these. Right, we'll go ahead to step 2. We'll do Command A or Control A. We'll flag these. We'll make those purple. And step 2, V11. We'll go ahead and flag these as pink. There we go. So that way we're left with step 1 stuff for V12, right? Now, you can see there's some like pink stuff, or there's some purple, flashcards here. There's some turquoise too. So, there's a few cards that kind of overlap between the board exams. So what we want to do is go ahead and unsuspend all the step 1 stuff. So there it says toggle suspend. We want to go ahead and unsuspend it. And then immediately we're going to go ahead and flag them different color. Let's say red, right? That way we've got all the step 1 stuff that we need. There we go, all in red. Perfect. So, as you can see, when we go to step 2, step 2 stuff that's distinctly step 2 is in purple. Step 3 stuff, let's see if there's anything distinctly step 3, which is a long way ahead. Yep, there's a couple things here. There's like 1 or 2. Yeah, there we go. So there's some things that are distinctly step 3. But this essentially helps us to figure out, okay, this is all the step 1 stuff that we need. Like you can see it's like 31,000 flashcards. Why is it only showing up as 1? Well, it's because we had them unsuspended at first, right? So now, or they were suspended at first, so now they're unsuspended, right? If we go back, now it increases to 20. Well, why is it 20 and not like 30,000, right? We'll get to that here in a second, how to, be able to show as many cards as possible, basically. But what I'll go ahead and say now is that we pretty much have the AnKing step deck all set up, with the exception of some settings to, basically allow you to, actually get started studying properly. So I'll go ahead and do the next step here for importing decks, which is we're going to go ahead and import the SIU decks from the Google Drive that the M2 shared. So I'll just use the Ancasito deck that we have here, because that's just, most accessible one for me at the moment. That's the one I have downloaded. So in order for you to import a deck, once you have it downloaded in your downloads folder, you're just going to double click it, click import. It's going to pop up this, little window here. You're going to click import. It's going to put in all the files, all the media files and stuff, all the pictures and the images and the diagrams. It's going to give you this overview tab. You're just going to click out of it. And then now you have all this junk here. We're going to go ahead and minimize it. That way it's simpler to look at, right? So now we have the Ancasito SIU proprietary deck, basically. I don't know why. There we go. All of a sudden it started downloading in the background. But so the theme here, like if you've seen, is that everything is super overwhelming. And I'll try my best to kind of explain, but you can go here to browse again, right? And unlike AnKing, right? Let's go ahead and go into decks, right? We have the AnKing step deck. We can see that there's a million different tags, right? All these different fields and extra notes and whatnot. But if we go to the Oncusito deck, we can see that it's broken down by CRR, ERG, and MB, are 3 units, right? This is at least the Oncusito. I haven't looked at the Y1 deck, but they've already said that they're not really tagged by, subjects or whatever. But what you do see is that you have a breakdown of, different topics or weeks. So we have like week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, right? So it's pretty straightforward with the SIU decks. You're just going to go ahead and study by the week's content. You'll study those relevant cards for that week. There are little how-to guides in the Google Drive that the M2s gave as well that show, what kind of Boards and Beyond, lectures match up with a specific week's content. So that's really helpful if you want to use those third-party resources. But some people will be using Bootcamp, so we'll have to just kind of estimate the video that matches the ones in Boards and Beyond, just based on the title. I think there's a lot of like shared video titles or topic names anyway, so it shouldn't be too bad. But now with unsuspending and suspending cards, which you're going to be doing in AnKing, all you really have to do with suspending and unsuspending cards is basically kind of to suspend them and unsuspend them based on what resources you're going to use, right? So if you look at the M2's guide, the doc that they have, which, like I said, I'll drop that link in the description. If you look at their guide for what, Boards and Beyond videos match up with our weekly lectures and content, you'll go ahead, watch those Boards and Beyond videos, right? And then let's say you want to unsuspend or pull out all the cards from the AnKing deck, right, that talk about, let's say cardiac physiology, right? Now you could be using Boards and Beyond, you could be using the Costanzo textbook, Bootcamp, whatever it is. You'll see that if you go to the tag here, step 1 V12 right here, you'll see all these different resources, Amboss, B&B, which is Boards and Beyond, Bootcamp, Costanzo, First Aid, all these different resources. So they're tagged by resources, right? So you can go ahead and go to Boards and Beyond. We'll say cardio, intro, and then voila, you have cardiac physiology. Let me go ahead and expand the tab here so that it's a little easier to kind of see, if I can. There we go. Cardiac physiology, right? So then you have what looks like 53 cards about cardiac physiology. So you can go ahead, select them all, and if we had them unsuspended, right, which I would prefer to have them all suspended first, and then unsuspend the ones that you want to look at. So you could have these ones, unsuspended, and then those are the ones that you kind of review, right? So that's the way you kind of go about studying, sort of. So you'll go to these drop-down menus, you'll go find a tag that is matching up with a specific resource you want to use, like Boards and Beyond, to the specific video or chapter or content you want to pull out, like cardiac physiology. You'll select all of the cards that are in that specific topic or by that tag, and then you'll unsuspend them. In this case, they're already unsuspended, right? As you can imagine, it'll probably take some exploring to kind of find the right tags. That's up to all of us to kind of help each other out to find the stuff we need to get to, but you get the gist. You can select all the cards by right-clicking or two-finger clicking, unsuspending them, suspending them as you see fit. The concept of suspending and unsuspending is just the idea of pulling out or hiding away the cards that you want to look at right now. So once again, since AnKing is for boards and step 1 includes M1 and M2 content, there's some stuff that we could have needed to go over during M1, but SIU didn't give us, so that's where we fill in the gap with AnKing. There's also stuff that we simply might not have gotten to yet that we'll get to in M2 year. At that point, I think we might just have to put those cards to the side and keep them unsuspended, or actually suspended, my bad, since we don't know, the content yet. Or if you're insane about preparing and retaining as much as you can, irrespective of everything else, you could, in theory, just go for rote memorization, or perhaps, go and actually study that unknown stuff that we haven't gotten to yet on your own to get ahead. Once again, like simultaneously, the worst and best thing about Anki and all this stuff is that it's flexible. You do you. So that's suspending and unsuspending cards here, right? And if you don't want to go by resource, you can go by like systems or other tags here. So there's like biochem, biostats, cardio. So you can, suspend and unsuspend and filter out cards just based on, whatever system it is. But I think it's probably just going to be easier and more straightforward just filtering out by Boards and Beyond and whatnot, because they've The M2s I've already gotten pretty in depth with, linking those third-party resources with the in-house lectures, and it's just easier probably to go through things that way. Let's see here. And you can see here as well that, Boards and Beyond isn't everything. It only covers 21,000 cards. So there's things that might be on like Osmosis or Pathoma. Like obviously there's pathology stuff that, might be exclusive to Pathoma that we need to look at, for example. So you just kind of go along and pull out the cards that you need to study when you need to study them based on these tags, basically, right? So we've gotten kind of to the final step here. Let me actually go ahead and minimize all these windows. You see 20, right? But we were talking about like some 20, 30,000 cards, right? So like I said before, I'm not an expert. Everyone learns their own way, but I'll show you the recommended settings from things I've seen on YouTube that you can use as a baseline, and I'll explain what the settings mean. I mean, honestly, in the most direct and blunt way possible, if you feel confident in your own memory, and you can choose to set up your settings in a way that you space things out more. If you're not so confident, then you can choose to set things up in a way that you get more cards all the time to make sure you retain the information. At the end of the day, like I said, we have to learn the content, but we can't deny that there's a short-term goal of passing our exams and the long-term goal of passing our boards too. So that's why I think we should have two separate, slightly different settings for our SIU decks and for our AnKing deck. That's just me personally. So AnKing is going to be set up to prioritize long-term learning, right? Not to say that SIU deck isn't long-term learning, but obviously there's a short-term value for SIU to study for exams that we have in 9 weeks versus boards that come up in 2 years, right? So the way that we can access these settings is by going obviously to this main AnKing homepage here, right, for our decks, and hovering over, this deck here, right, or this deck. So we'll start with the AnKing deck. So we'll hit this little gear symbol here. We'll go to options, right? And before we mess with anything else, what I recommend is going immediately straight down to FSRS and enabling that, because that disables some of the settings that are more complex. So I recommend going with the FSRS algorithm. I have no idea what it stands for. I learned about it earlier, can't remember. Doesn't matter, right? There's 2 algorithms for AnKing. It was whatever the previous one was. I think it was like SM. No idea what that stands for either. And then there's FSRS. So long story short, from personal experience and searching online, it seems that FSRS is superior because it's adaptable over time and helps out behind the scenes to kind of help us avoid card overload, which is getting too many cards to review or look at in one day. I think eventually it's inevitable with how med school is that we'll probably end up doing a crazy amount of cards, but it's nice to know that FSRS can do its part kind of behind the scenes to try and schedule and space things out more so that we're not overwhelmed. Not 100% sure this is how it works, but it seems to me that as you're studying or even when you're away, it takes into account what cards you've already done so far, the difficulty or ease you have of retaining certain cards, and your desired level of memory retention to space cards out to bridge the gap between card retention and card overload. So let's just skip to the settings already. We want to go ahead and set our maximum reviews and our new cards, right, to like huge amount. And there we go. Perfect. So that's the maximum new cards a day and maximum reviews a day. I think that's probably just the maximum for the program as a whole, right? This won't cover, obviously, because it's like 36,000 AnKing flashcards, but we want to be able to basically, study as much as possible and not be limited by a certain amount, which, once again, I know it sounds counterintuitive. We don't obviously want to study all the time, but at the end of the day, let's be honest. You just can't get around the amount of information we need to know for med school. If we have to do 1,000 cards a day, so be it. We can't have the limit be 200 because we feel like it. It's just an unfortunate reality. I mean, if it takes 1,000 cards to be prepared for an exam or for whatever, we got to do it. So that's that, right? Now our learning steps. If you ever used AnKing before, these are going to be the intervals for our 4 buttons that I showed way earlier in the video, which are try again, hard, good, and easy. So per the AnKing settings for FSRS, he just has this set at, I want to say, it's 15 minutes. So 15 minutes for the learning steps. He doesn't recommend messing with this for sake of making the algorithm work. And to be honest, I'm not experienced enough to tweak it beyond that. You can browse Reddit or YouTube or any other online resources if you feel like the intervals are not working for you, or are going to be too long or too short. All I know is that you shouldn't have intervals of more than a day, because otherwise it just screws with the algorithm, and that kind of defeats the purpose of it working behind the scenes to reduce the load on you. So maybe honestly, I would just keep with the AnKing settings to be safe. I've seen that using just one learning step like this will keep the other steps for the buttons variable, which helps with spacing cards out better. Insertion order is up to you again, but you'll probably want to keep it at sequential as well, since especially for stuff like AnKing, they've probably created cards in a certain order to build up knowledge, so it might be easier to just keep it sequential instead of random. With respect to relearning steps, right, AnKing also has it at 15 minutes. This lapses section here helps us to just kind of define what to do when we've forgotten cards. Relearning steps are just the base interval that's set whenever you've forgotten a card, which is when you hit try again. So we want to keep this the same as learning, right? Leeches, though, you see leech threshold here. Leeches are cards that we continuously get wrong, so it makes sense that we want to clearly identify which cards those are. So there's a leech threshold and leech action. The threshold is how many times we can get it wrong before it's marked as a leech. And then the leech action should be to tag it and not suspend it, because we don't want to suspend it completely. We simply want to mark it as a leech in order to realize that, hey, I'm getting this wrong a lot, so I better focus on it in the future. The threshold is recommended to be 4 by AnKing, but I like to give myself a little bit of room, and so I say 8, but it's up to you, whatever you want. So rapid fire now, display order. You want to make sure new cards are in ascending position, right? Which means that they're presented in the order that they were created, which makes sense. Let's say, for example, like for the SIU deck, you don't want a card to be given to you that was about slide 70 in the PowerPoint before slide 2. New card sort order is kind of the same concept. We want it to be in the order gathered. New/review order should be show after reviews, right? So this is crucial. I don't want to keep piling up new cards when I can't even remember the stuff that I've already gone through. Now, there are intra-day learning cards and inter-day learning cards. Intraday cards, right, as the prefix would hint, means that these are review cards that have learning steps shorter than 1 day. It's within the same day. Interday cards are review cards with learning steps, and interday cards are review cards with learning steps longer than 1 day. I think this doesn't really apply a whole lot because our learning steps will likely be more than 1 day per FSRS anyway. That's just how the algorithm works. But regardless, if you do decide to mess a bit more with the learning steps and have some that are less than 1 day, like 15 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, then having the setting to show before reviews, right, means that you're shown first the cards that have been deemed to have learning steps longer than 1 day, which kind of indicates that they're relying a little bit more on quizzing your long-term retention. So it's like bringing up the long-term stuff first before we take care of the short-term memory stuff. So anyway, long story short, keep it at show before reviews because it helps make sure that I'm addressing long-term retention first before short-term, which is arguably more important. Review sort order should be due date then random, right? This means that when I'm presented review cards, I should receive them ranked based on when they are due, and then after that, they are randomized. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I think it just helps cover the fact that if you end up delaying your reviews or you don't do them for a day and you pile up the next days, it just prioritizes the ones that were due earlier, and then we'll randomize after that, which is good because you want to try and remember things out of order so it's not fall victim to remembering things just simply in the order they were taught to you. Okay, burying, you should enable bury new siblings and review siblings, especially if you use close cards that I mentioned earlier with fill in the blank. I don't want, to be quizzed on 2 fill in the blanks from the same card in the same day. I want to save the second blank, for example, or the third blank for another day. Because it's almost like an entirely different challenge or new piece of knowledge filling in a new blank. Leave the third toggle for Bury interday learning siblings. Just leave it alone. Not sure why. Just the AnKing recommends it. Which, I mean, I don't know. If you're still with me till now, you're the GOAT. And if you aren't tired, well, I sure as hell am. So just leave that alone. No idea why. Let's just keep moving. So we want to keep the audio settings off as well. So I'm not entirely sure why, but I want to say there might be audio files like heart sounds, long sounds. So we don't want those to play automatically. We just want to control that stuff manually for ourselves. So leave those alone. Maximum timer here. So maximum answer seconds should be kept at 60 as well per the AnKing, because it's important to keep track of how long you're studying each day. If you take longer than 60 seconds, it'll just assume you stepped away, so it won't count towards your total time spent studying. I'm not even sure we need to be reminded of how long we spent studying, but I guess it's a feature. So there's that. Definitely don't mess with auto advance. That just keeps the cards going just automatically, which is not good. And then we've enabled FSRS previously, right? So we've gotten that taken care of. And that just brings us to the last few things with respect to settings. So there's desired retention, which is basically kind of our designated % chance of remembering cards when they come up for review. For SIU decks, you can set this probably a little bit higher than for the AnKing deck, because while our exams are pass-fail, you want to still make sure you're doing well, because it's the first time we're getting through this contest. We want to make sure we're retaining as much as we can. And because step 1 is a lot of information, so we could probably drop it down for the AnKing deck to like 85% or something. Step 1 is a ton of information, like I said. So you could drop it down like 85 or 90, and then SIU deck could be like 90 or 95. So it's just kind of up to you. But if you see, if we edit it here, right, for desired retention, oops, not 77. If we want to do 95, right, it says 100-day interval will become 46 days. So that just means that, okay, well, I want to, have a 95% chance of retaining my information. So even if the program like initially sets a 100-day interval to study something, like in 100 days I have to look at this card again, it'll actually make it 46 days because I want to remember them a lot more frequently, right? I want to make sure that I'm getting on top of things. But if I set it to 90, right? Come on, let's do that again. So that's 95. We'll do 90. Or how about, there we go. Just a little drop down menu here. So a 100-day interval will become 112 days. If we do like 85, a 100-day interval will become 164 days. You can see that then it's just, sending them out even farther, right? So that's beneficial because then it helps you space things out a little bit more. That's where I'm saying like it works behind the scenes to kind of reduce card overload, right? So this is totally up to you based on your settings. I wouldn't mess with the FSRS parameters as well. Not experienced enough to do that either. But let's see here. So for maximum interval, this is the other thing that we want to maybe keep different between the SIU decks and the AnKing decks. So maximum interval is the maximum number of days a review card will wait when the reviews have reached the limit, right? So basically, like if I've gotten this card, so many times that now it's being spaced out at a maximum number of days that I've, determined here, that's what the maximum interval is, right? So I feel like the SIU decks should be less than the AnKing decks because for the maximum interval, because once again, it's a balance of short-term in-house exams versus long-term board exams. So, I hear 180 days or 6 months is a solid recommendation, or 240 days or 8 months. Some people recommend that as well for AnKing, just to maintain long-term retention. For SIU decks, it's kind of up to us, I guess. We might want to keep it shorter for each individual unit deck we have at SIU. That way we see our cards more frequently and make sure that we see them again and again within our unit length, right? So maybe something like 30 days or shorter. I could be very well wrong about that, but this could be a big no-no. I did this for the MCAT when I knew I was studying for a defined period of time, short term, so I kept the max interval shorter, but I'm not entirely sure to what extent we would need to remember all of this information beyond like our mid-unit or end-of-unit exams in the sense that, at the end of the day, once we pass SIU in-house exams, we still have to worry about boards, and that could cover, boards could cover more or less information per unit or per topic compared to our in-house exams, if that makes sense. Once again, another long story short, maybe just keep it at 180 days, once again, preserving long-term retention, and then do custom studies, which I'll explain it here in a bit. The last option for settings here is the optimize button for FSRS. Once you've reviewed like 1,000 cards, I think, you can optimize the algorithm. It helps, when you click this button, it'll help you reduce your daily card overload because it adjusts like, values with your retention, your study habits, stuff like that behind the scenes, and make the intervals shorter or longer depending on the algorithm to try and reduce the daily card overload. It's another one of those reasons why I really prefer this algorithm, because it just does all the nice work behind the scenes for you. Now, that should be it for settings. Final last few words here. Custom studies can be used for picking out cards or filtering out cards that you just want to do or have a special focus on beyond your normal routine or schedule. If you're feeling like you're not really remembering something, or you got stumped on something or whatever, you can kind of go to the main screen here. Once again, you click decks, choose the deck from which you want to custom study. So if I do Oncicito, I want to do a custom study for, week 1 medical biochem, right? I can click custom study here, study by card state or tag. Obviously for, SIU decks, we're not going to have card state or tags, but for AnKing you will, right? So you can filter out which tags you want. You can do new cards only, you can do cards that are due only, whatever you want, right? So you can just do a custom study if you really want to, focus on something specific. But beyond this custom study feature, you can postpone and advance cards using another add-on called FSRS for Anki Helper. I'll drop the link in the description of that as well. It should have instructions on how to, mess around with it and set it up on the Anki web link for it. But if you want another video for that, just let me know and I can make it. Now, I think that just about wraps up almost everything you need to know about Anki as a beginner. I know it's a really long video, so I do apologize. Tried my best to kind of simplify things as well as give as much detail as I can, because I know it's an overwhelming piece of software. There's a lot of terms, a lot of new things you have to worry about, and it's just very, 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 very complex for no reason at all. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm more than willing to help out. Last thing I would recommend personally is to start bit by bit, right? Bit by bit. It's an overwhelming new chapter that we have ahead. Doesn't really help to have an overwhelming piece of software that is supposedly trying to help us. So don't try to go ham with add-ons on day one. Just feel free to explore those on your own, little by little, when you have free time as you go along and get used to it. So I can create a list if you guys want of the add-ons that I would recommend as essential. So let me know if you'd like that as well. Otherwise, that's been it. Hope this has been helpful. Let me know if I missed anything, missed any links, anything like that. And I'll see y'all later.